Welcome to Janet's Planet, where we are traveling at the speed of thought. And I am so excited that today I get to share with you all about space careers, a literal universe of possibilities. Sometimes people ask me, Janet, what is it that you do? And you know what I tell them? I tell them that I am an entire galaxy of things. Sometimes I am doing just as I am doing right now, inspiring the next generation of space explorers, astronauts, Martians, and beyond. Other times you might see me on CNN being a space science expert. Mars is having a party right now.
It is indeed. Janet Happy, thanks so much. We'll be right back.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Maybe sometimes you might even see me doing a camp or an online class. And then at other times, I might be writing a book. So when I say to you that you can be an entire galaxy of things, I want you to really embrace this possibility. But let me tell you this, in the next 10, 20, 30 years, the space industry is going to be a $1 trillion business. No more of this billionaire stuff. We're talking trillionaires. So I want you right now to think about, what do you think is maybe the most or best job in space? Aha! I heard you say astronaut, and I mean, that is super cool, but it's not the only thing we need in space. And you might be thinking, well, isn't everybody who goes to space an astronaut? Well, I suppose you could say that, but it isn't just that. In fact, 95% of the people that work for NASA aren't astronauts. So maybe you'll do something in mission control or you'll build something, but that's what we're here to talk about. If you are out there, but Janet, I am going to be an astronaut. Well, here are some NASA requirements. They require you to be in good physical shape. They want you exercising every day. They want you making the best grades possible. They want you staying curious. So they will even check your background for how you might have misbehaved in school. How were you as a young adult? They will go back into your past and say, this person sounds exactly like what we need as an astronaut. Now, you used to have perfect vision, but now you can have corrective lenses, contacts, even glasses. And 60 years ago, you had to be a fighter pilot to be an astronaut. Now, they like it if you have some knowledge of aviation. However, you don't have to be those things. Now they're looking for space medicine. Do you want to be a doctor? Well, you might be needed in space. Do you love to grow plants and maybe you like to farm? How would you like to grow plants and an entire farm on the moon or Mars? Or maybe you go, I'm a geologist. I love rocks. I love everything about rocks. I want to mine an asteroid. All of those things are possible. Now, here's where I want you to join me. Think, use your minds, travel with me at the speed of thought, shout it out. Tell me 3 careers that you don't normally associate with space. Good one. Nice. I'm getting so many answers from all of you. I heard chef, and you would be right. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I'm going to space, there are certain things I'm going to have. Pizza, something salty, some really good, tacos. Can you have tacos in space? Maybe not yet, but maybe one day. So yes, we're going to need a cook or a chef, or at least here on Earth, the best people to make the best food for the astronauts to go to space with. I also heard somebody say plumber, and I gotta say that's one of my favorites because my dad was a plumber. And think about this, whatever you do or need on Earth, you also need in space. And it's a little weird to think about, but if you need the bathroom here on Earth, you need a bathroom in space. And what happens if something goes wrong? You're going to need to call a plumber. And so that could be somebody that is needed. So you could be a plumber and an astronaut and travel to space. Now, I also heard somebody say something truly fantastic. Thank you for saying this. I heard somebody say fashion designer. Isn't that magnificent? And I have to say, if I am living underground in lava tubes, either on the moon or Mars, I've had a hard day out on the surface of the moon or Mars or beyond, doing great research. I've come in, I'm exhausted. I might just want to don a perfect pair of fashion designer pajamas. Whatever we need on Earth, we're going to need in space. So you shouted out so many ideas. I think we're going to cover some of what you're talking about, but here are some other things that you might not have considered. In line with that fashion designer, you might be the actual seamstresses who make the astronaut suits. There are companies out there like Paragon Space Development Corporation that actually is making some of the astronaut suits and the life support systems. Inside that suit, you're going to need ways to carry your oxygen and breathe. So again, seamstress, fashion designer, you might actually make a spacesuit that somebody wears on Mars someday that will be impervious to any kind of radiation, meaning nothing can get through. If you develop that for the moon or Mars, you've just solved cancer here on Earth. If you figure out a way to grow plants on the moon or Mars, you perchance just solve food scarcity here on Earth. What if we figure out that we don't really have to have soil? What if we grow all of our plants and vegetables in a way that we only use water and nutrients? That's what we call hydroponics. There's a friend of mine named Dr. Daniel Tompkins who has this fantastic idea where we might on Mars plant plants that can produce plastic. You might have seen that maybe on a soda bottle sometime, right? Where it says plant-based plastic. He thinks we grow enough of those plants and then they grow, we chop it up, we put it in our 3D printer, we print an entire new greenhouse. We plant more plants and then we extract the materials, we put it in our 3D printer. Pretty soon we can create an entire Martian city just by using the power of plant-based plastic. Mind blown. Now, hopefully we'll also be planting potatoes and strawberries and, oh, what did you say? I don't know. Do you know? I do know that they're just now testing out how to grow hot peppers and bell peppers on the International Space Station. So yeah, we'll have to see. But won't that be part of the fantastic challenge of going to space, is seeing what we can actually accomplish? Now, get this. If you're going, but you know what, Janet? I live on a farm and we've got cows or pigs or chickens. How are we going to, will we ever be able to have a chicken sandwich on the moon or a hamburger on Mars? I don't know. We could even have plant-based meat. You guys have probably already tested that out. Like an Impossible Burger or Beyond Meat or something like that. But my friend Scott at Orbital Farms thinks you're going to grow food in an entirely different manner. You're going to potentially, so come in close for this, if you want to have a hamburger on Mars, you'll extract some cells from a cow, you will put it in this cellular bioreactor, and then that will produce the equivalent of a hamburger, and never ever take the cow with you. What? I know. It sounds a little weird that we would grow meat in a bioreactor, but that is actual science that is happening. And I mentioned 3D printing greenhouses. They're already 3D printing food. There is a company that actually 3D prints pizza. How long do you think it would take to 3D print a pizza? Anybody? Anybody got a guess? Anybody out there? Ooh, no, actually not that long, but that's a good guess. It actually only takes about 60 to 90 seconds. And again, they had to perfect it, but it comes out and it literally tastes like an artisan pizza that you might find at some fancy pizza place. So imagine this, that one day you'll just put the ingredients in, it 3D prints your pizza, and within a couple of minutes, you are enjoying your favorite cheese and pepperoni. I'm hoping at this point, if you're thinking, wow, what other kind of jobs might there be in space? How many of you out there would raise your hand and say, I am an engineer. I love to build things. Ooh, lots of you. Nice. Now imagine this. You could be working for NASA or the European Space Agency or the Canadian Space Agency, or maybe you're like, you know what, I am not going to go for one of these government agencies. I'm going to work for SpaceX or Blue Origin or Aerojet Rocketdyne or Lockheed Martin. And you might be the engineer that figures out how we get to planets faster with better propulsion, and you create the rockets that get us to space further and farther than we've ever been before. Maybe you are the engineers that design how we're going to land perfectly on the moon and or on Mars. Maybe you're the engineers that design the lunar landers or the Martian landers so that astronauts are completely safe when they get to the surface of the moon, so that there's no harm at all to their bodies. I mean, when you have zero atmosphere, nothing is slowing you down. Or on Mars, it's like the atmosphere is super thin. And how do you come in at just the right trajectory and land just so very softly that your entire crew is safe and ready to walk out and put their footprints on Mars? Maybe you will figure out a way to do that. Here are some current designs that Lockheed Martin, SpaceX, and many others are proposing for lunar landers when we return to the moon. So maybe you are getting inspired. Well, I think it could look like this, or what if we used, and that is what makes a great engineer. Somebody who's always thinking, a great scientist is like, wonder if that would work. Now, imagine this. We are now on the moon. We're going to need somebody to put in Wi-Fi on the moon. I mean, how else are we going to communicate not only back on Earth, but how are we going to communicate with our village on the moon? Did you know that Nokia was actually awarded the first ever company to have a contract to put 5G on the moon? Maybe you'll work for that company and you will figure out the best ways to have the best communication on the surface of the moon. And how many of you like medicine? How many of you dream about being a doctor? But what if those first people that go back to the moon or onto Mars, and they've got a pretty good scope of how to handle most medical emergencies? What happens when something goes wrong, or somebody breaks a bone, or maybe somebody's heart isn't working properly? Well, my friend John actually has a company called Avatar Medic. What if you could perform open heart surgery through VR? And that you have never performed it before, but you're following every instruction, so that literally it is kind of like a robotic, augmented reality, virtual reality surgery. These are the cutting edge things that people are thinking about. And maybe along with a space doctor, we're going to need a space dentist or a space nurse or a space chiropractor. Again, anything that you need or enjoy here on Earth, we're going to need in space. And you might be the person who figures out how we get rid of all of the debris that is currently encircling Earth. And what I mean by that, we call it space junk. And sometimes it's as tiny as a speck of paint off of an old space shuttle. In the last year, there was a SpaceX launch headed to the International Space Station. The astronauts had been up since very early before the launch. They were about 5 hours into their trip to the International Space Station. They had all decided it was time to take a rest, nap, and go into their little sleep pods. However, they got a message from Mission Control that said, "We have spotted space debris headed toward you. Get back in your astronaut suits immediately, and we may have to abort this mission." If that small piece of space debris had hit their spaceship, you don't want to be traveling somewhere in space and have your entire mission thwarted because of a piece of space junk. So there are scientists who are working on this problem. And as silly as it may sound, what could you imagine that we might use to capture space junk? Oh, have you read that article already? Space Claw! You're exactly right. I know it sounds like something in a crazy book, right? Space Claw. But no, they would actually go in, grab it, and either drag it so that it would finally deorbit, because our Earth's atmosphere, usually when things hit it, things burn up and explode before they ever hit planet Earth, which is a very good thing. So, or they could drag it with the space claw and put it into what I like to call space storage. Now, they don't have that yet, but if I had a ton of money, that's what I would invest in, because then you become the kind of like recycling center for space. Maybe you're going to come up with that. There's another company that has what they call the Space Net. Why do we put space in front of everything? Well, we're in space potentially, right? So maybe you capture it with a net, and again, you pull it into some kind of facility or container, or you deorbit it and it burns up in our atmosphere. Who among you wants to be a space lawyer? I object, Your Honor. Overruled. Now, there was something in 1967 called the Outer Space Treaty that said space is intended to be used for peaceful purposes. But as we go to the moon to live, work, do research, blast off from the moon, maybe onto Mars, live on Mars, what are the laws there? Is the moon a separate entity? Is it the declaration of the United Parts of the Moon? Does the moon have rights? Do the people who live on the moon, are they citizens of Earth or citizens of the moon? Who will be the people to draft these documents? Well, it's going to be our space lawyers. I got here first. This is my land. This is my piece of the moon. Who's going to reside over that and give them a piece of paper or a document that legally says they have ownership of the moon? Or can anybody own the moon? Is it literally for everybody? I don't know. I'm not a space lawyer, but maybe you will be.
The Artemis program itself will be the broadest and most diverse international space exploration coalition in history, and these accords are the vehicle to achieve this unprecedented global cooperation. The Artemis journey is to the moon and onto Mars. With these accords, the destination is more than the moon and Mars. It's about peace and prosperity.
Who owns the gold, copper, uranium, platinum, titanium that I find when I mine an asteroid? What? You will come up and work for a deep space mining company. That's right. You'll head out there to the asteroid belt and you're like, ooh, there's gold there in these little asteroids. And copper, magnesium, natural gas, titanium, uranium, plutonium. What? All of the things that exist in our solar system. You harness those, pack them in your spacecraft, head on back to Earth. People will pay a pretty penny for those resources, especially if Earth should suddenly start to run out of those resources. How many entrepreneurs do I have out there? Oh, yeah, I see you. All right. Oh, who all wants a side hustle? All right, you got your job on Earth. But how about that lunar expedition and tourism company? That's right. You are selling trips to the moon. You've got your moon hotel. You've got your moon space park. So instead of telling your kids and your families one day, hey, you know what? Let's skip the old Disney World thing. We're going to the moon. stay in this inflatable space motel. You could own it. The first ever. What would you name it? What would I name mine? I'd name my space hotel Janet's Planet. Yeah, that's what I would name it. What would you name your space hotel? Oh, that's funny. Moon Pie? I love all of that. Ooh, that's what you serve at your lunar hotel, are moon pies. I like it. And I can't tell you how often we can look back 50, 100, 150, 200 years, and we find these fantastical stories about space travel. And we read about in Arthur C. Clarke's 2001 Space Odyssey. He wrote it a long time ago. And he talked about these news pads where astronauts would take out these rectangular devices and literally swipe through and scroll through news. And then they would neatly pack it up and away it would disappear. Arthur C. Clarke did not live long enough to see the iPad released in 2010. He wrote this book calling them news pads, and again, sounded like something nifty in a book, but it actually came true. It was an actual product. If we go back even to the early 1900s, let me tell you this, because while you're sitting there, I'm hoping your brains are going, oh, what could I create? Could I create something? Yes, you can. Nikola Tesla told the New York Times, one day, we will be able to carry in our pockets a device where we can transmit information without wires. What? In the early 1900s, when most people didn't even have a phone in their home, he's talking about carrying around a device that we could carry in our pockets where we can transmit messages, make phone calls without wires. He was describing the internet that we know. He's describing cell phones, iPads, and this was over 120 years ago. So whatever you can think or imagine today just might be great science tomorrow. So never think that your idea is not doable. In fact, Einstein said if your idea is not absurd enough, then there is no hope for it. I always love this picture of Einstein where he's laughing. I think he was quite a comical guy, but he really did say that. So the more absurd that you can think about a space claw or a space law or a space hotel with a space theme park, I don't know. It sounds absurd. Maybe even a space elevator. What if one day, and people are dreaming about this, that we could create an elevator? We don't need rockets. We don't have to use all that fuel. We just have a sweet little elevator that starts here on ground number 1 here on Earth. Now it might take a little while to travel up that elevator, and you travel all the way to space. Have a nice look around. Well, that was a beautiful day spent, well, heading to space, going down. Maybe you're going to create that. But if you Google the word space elevator, you're going to see designs are already in motion. I know it sounds like I'm kidding with you. I'm not. There have been people that have been dreaming wild, absurdly imaginative things that we are beginning to see come true. In fact, when I was a kid, I truly thought that by the time I was in high school, humans were going to be on Mars. Now, that didn't happen that way, but in your lifetime, by the mid-2040s, early 2050s, you may very well be the very people who will be on Mars. again, that's going to take people of all kinds. And think about space weather. Anybody out there love to watch the weather? I'm always in the wintertime really interested in it, going, could we have a snow day? Is a snow day possible? Are we going to get snow? Because where I live, we don't get snow that much, so we get super excited when we do get a snow day. If you're on Mars, you're going to want to know, as the Martian meteorologist, when a dust storm is going to happen, because those things can happen for months on Mars. You're going to need to know if all of a sudden the sun is at solar maximum and there's a sudden huge solar flare sending out radiation. You're going to need to tell all your people in your moon village to go underground and stay away from that radiation. Whatever you start to dream about doing or making on the moon, Mars, or an asteroid or beyond, how can it look backward at that big, beautiful blue ball and benefit it? Here's some other jobs. You're going to be an astrobiologist. We're going to be looking for signs of life, and maybe life as we don't know it here on Earth. So you're going to need somebody who can identify that and has been trained to look for those things. You're going to need an aerospace engineer. Anything happens to that spacecraft, a good aerospace engineer is going to be good to have. Maybe an astrophysicist who can really explain the stars. They will look incredibly different if you're on the moon or Mars. Now, on the moon, the stars won't twinkle because anything above the Earth's atmosphere, the stars are fixed points of light. They don't twinkle. The only reason that we describe it in such poetic terms is because when the light from that star hits our Earth's atmosphere, it's a process. I love this word. It's a big one. I'm going to spell it down here. It's called scintillation. Woo! And it's like this spark. It even kind of sounds sparkly, right? Scintillation. But it is the process when the light hits our Earth's atmosphere, how it disperses, and we perceive it as twinkling or shimmering light. But up above the Earth's atmosphere, those stars don't twinkle. They're fixed points of light. We'll need computer programmers. Imagine when the robots all go wonky, we're going to need somebody who can code, hack, and fix those computers. What if we need a software upgrade? We're going to need those kinds of computer people who love to know the code and Python and all of those other things, JavaScript. And face it, you're not going to just work all the time. You're going to need entertainers. Who's going to be the first space musician? Who's going to be among you that's going to blast out your concert from the moon? First ever live broadcast coming to you all the way from the lunar surface. Here she is, Adara, or whatever your name happens to be. I like the name Adara. That kind of sounds spacey. Anywho, so you're gonna need those kinds of things. You're gonna need musicians and painters and artists and communicators. What about the first TV series that is blasted out from the lunar surface? It could be literally the first moon reality show showing how people live and work and tell the story back to the Earthlings. So you're going to need people who are good at communicating the science that's discovered. Elsewise, the people back on Earth like, yeah, another message from the people on the moon. So you got to have somebody that can really excite people and go, you'll never get to believe what we found today, and make phosphine sound super, super cool. So researchers, engineers, chefs, biologists, architects, farmers, those people growing food in cellular bioreactors, 3D printing tools. Again, the more that your mind can imagine, we're going to need it. As I'm talking to you, I hope that I have opened up your mind to literally a universe of abundant ideas that you may be going, whoa, I've got some really good ideas. You know what I want you to do? I want you to grab a piece of paper. And I want you just to start drawing or writing down words, maybe making a list of some of the things that I have said, and I'll repeat them for you. Biologist, farmer, astronaut, researcher, engineer, coder, computer, gamer, musician, artist, meteorologist. Ooh, what else did I name? 3D printing, space doctor, space lawyer, order on the moon. So, oh, culinary artist, a chef, geologist, astrophysicist, astrobiologist. Oh, did I mention atmospheric chemist? Because on Mars, there's lots of things that we could breathe in that could be very harmful to our lungs, our thyroid. Whew, we got to be careful of that Martian dust. And, oh, by the way, on the moon, the regolith, meaning the lunar soil, is so sharp. It's as sharp as diamonds. There are actually tears in the Apollo astronaut suits because the lunar dust is so sharp. You don't want to be breathing that in. You'll have to create the space vacuum that when you come inside after doing a day of research, that you stand maybe in that container and it goes, and then you have the robot that removes the suit and you'll have to put it in the closet. Oh, so many things to create. We better get started.
What do you dream of doing with your future? Do you want to help people with a career in healthcare? To master a trade and build things with your hands? To be the next startup that invents a new piece of life-changing technology? Or to make a difference for our planet or people in need? Whatever your career ambitions, you can make them happen in space. When most people think about jobs in space, they think of astronauts, rocket scientists, and software engineers sitting in rooms with lots of computers. And in reality, thousands of different jobs on Earth come together to make every space achievement possible. There are the space researchers and scientists who investigate and test how we can do things safer, quicker, or further. The engineers who design spacecraft like satellites, from the mechanics through to the astronautics. Software developers who build and code the critical parts of space systems. And mathematicians and analysts keeping everything running smoothly. There are also the aspiring entrepreneurs and startups, leveraging space technologies like the Internet of Things to solve challenges. The lawyers helping to regulate a constantly changing industry, and even the PR professionals, helping to share how space improves people's lives.
Ooh, the list just keeps growing.
What motivates me is going outside at night, looking up at the moon and thinking about how humans are going to be walking on the moon once again in the very near future.
It is a big idea, but that's what we do at NASA. I'm focused on taking those big ideas and making them into something that we can actually do and actually do on time.
We want to make sure we have really accurate measurements of Earth so that we can detect changes in climate over time. I'm thankful it's not just me working on this mission because I so value what other folks bring to the table.
By developing this aircraft, we're actually coming up with a lot of the standards that will be used to certify future electric aircraft.
NASA is leading and partnering with industries across the nation and the world, employing thousands and tens of thousands of Americans across the nation. Teamwork is the biggest thing of what has to work to do such a challenging thing as living around the moon. And we're coming together to be able to really take human space exploration to the next step.
We're bringing this American ingenuity, the collective greatness of all of the diverse minds that are in the United States on these grand challenges that we face.
Every day I go to work and I know there is a big purpose. It is high stakes, high pressure, but to be honest, that's what we do. That's what we do best.
I was a summer intern back in 2007. The experience changed my life forever. The people there were so inclusive. And I want to be able to inspire the little kids out there to be like, if he was able to do this, then I can too.
I want the largest number of students to have access. We work with schools and with students so that they see that they don't have to figure this out alone. And it's always fascinating for me when a student literally has the proverbial light bulb go off that this is something they can do.
Orbital dynamics don't slow down during a pandemic. we had to come up with ways to keep going right from the get-go. Because of all the safeguards that NASA and our team put in place, we all felt very safe still being able to develop our flight hardware on center.
I have hope that the current vaccine rollout is going to help us as we continue to vaccinate our entire population. We can come back to work in a way where we can continue to do the job that we have, understanding now that the situation has changed.
I am inspired by my colleagues, by the team members, because of the diligence that people have had in continuing to make this mission move forward.
Just some of the most phenomenal people in the world. And the things that I get to work with are just on the cutting edge.
I will say the possibilities are endless. Working at NASA is something that not even on my wildest dream I thought I was going to end up doing. And now that I'm doing it, it is the right place and the right home for me.
NASA is changing the future of spaceflight with the Artemis program. Generations to come will look back at this moment in history, and I'm just so excited to get to be a part of it.
All 50 years ago, we pioneered a path to the moon. The trail we blazed cut through the fictions of science and showed us all what was possible. Very pretty out here. Today, our calling to explore is even greater. To go farther, we must be able to sustain missions of greater distance and duration. We must use the resources we find at our destinations. We must overcome radiation, isolation, gravity, and extreme environments like never before. These are the challenges we face to push the bounds of humanity. We're going to the moon to stay by 2024, and this is how.
This all starts with the ability to get larger, heavier payloads off planet and beyond Earth's gravity.
For this, we designed an entirely new rocket.
The Space Launch System. SLS will be the most powerful rocket ever developed.
And with components in production
and more in testing,
this system is capable of being the catalyst for deep space missions.
We need a capsule
that can support humans from launch
through deep space and return safely back to Earth.
For this, we've built Orion.
This is NASA's next generation human space capsule.
Using data from lunar orbiters that continue to reveal the moon's hazards and resources,
we're currently developing an entirely new approach to landing and operating on the moon.
Using our commercial partners to deliver science instruments and robotics to the surface, we are paving the way for human missions in 2024.
Our charge is to go quickly and to stay, to press our collective efforts forward with a fervor that will see us return to the moon in a manner that is wholly different than 50 years ago.
We want lunar landers that are reusable,
that can land anywhere on the lunar surface.
The simplest way to do so is to give them a platform in orbit around the moon from which to transition.
An orbiting platform to host deep space experiments and be a waypoint for human capsules. We call this lunar outpost Gateway.
The beauty of the Gateway is that it can be moved between orbits.
It will balance between the Earth and Moon's gravity,
in a position that is ideal for launching even deeper space missions.
In 2009, we learned that the moon contains millions of tons of water ice.
This ice can be extracted and purified for water. It can be separated in oxygen for breathing or hydrogen for rocket fuel.
The moon is quite uniquely suited
to prepare us and propel us to Mars and beyond.
This is what we are building.
This is what we're training for.
This we can replicate throughout the solar system.
This is the next chapter of human space exploration.
Humans are the most fragile element of this entire endeavor, and yet we go for humanity. We go to the moon and on to Mars to seek knowledge and understanding and to share it with all. We go knowing our efforts will create opportunities that cannot be foreseen. We go because we are destined to explore and see it with our own eyes. We turn towards the moon now, not as a conclusion, but as preparation, as a checkpoint toward all that lies beyond. Our greatest adventures remain ahead of us. We are going.
We're going.
We are going.
We are going.
We're going.
So let me give you a few things to consider, as maybe after today's presentation, you think, wow, Mom, Dad, Grandma, Auntie, guess what? I'm going to have a career in space. But I need you to try as hard as you possibly can to learn as much as you possibly can. You must also be your own catalyst. And what do I mean by that? By that, I mean you must advocate and believe in yourself beyond anything anybody says. Occasionally, there may be some people who goes, oh, you won't do that. You can't do that. You'll never be that, because of who you are, what you look like, where you come from. But let me tell you, don't you listen one little bit. You just go out there, you do it, you make it happen, you prove them wrong, and that's how you change the world. So be your own best advocate, always. And always believe in the absurdity of your ideas. Because somewhere out there, one of you listening today, maybe tens and hundreds of you listening today, are thinking right now what you're going to create. And in the next 10, 20, 30 days, or months, or years, I'm going to be using a product that you created. The product that will get a grandma to Mars. Start inventing and innovating today. Don't wait. You already are the scientists of today, the best engineers I know, and the world is in desperate need of your genius. I trust you guys way more some days than I trust the adults. So go ahead, read, and read some more. And work hard, but also play hard. It's sometimes in the middle of our play that we actually figure out what we're really good at. So play. Because in the middle of your play, you may very well find your passion. And if you find your passion, you may very well find your purpose. Space purpose, even. So be your best advocate. Find a mentor. Ask a lot of questions. Maybe there's somebody where you live, or at your school, or at your community center, or ask your grown-ups. Yeah, ask the grown-ups around you. Hey, I'm really interested in this. Who can I talk to? And go and see if you can meet with them and ask them how they became who they are. Find a mentor. Now, you might get a few no's along the way, but I promise you somewhere out there, somebody's going to go, this kid is great. I say yes. And they will be your mentor. Be your own best advocate for yourself. Be your own best catalyst. Work hard, play hard, and never, ever give up. Because there, in the middle of that impossible thing, there is the possibility and probability, if you keep heading in the direction of what you want to do, you're going to meet with a kind of success unexpected in common hours, is what Thoreau said. And I say it too. Be willing to learn a lot. Learn a lot about a lot of different things, because you won't know what to choose if you haven't had an experience with a lot of different opportunities or options. And don't think you have to be a certain kind of STEM or STEAM person. You can be an entire galaxy of things. Most of the astronauts I know are not just an astronaut. They're musicians, they're pilots, they play the clarinet, or they're very good at magic tricks. One person I know is a really great puppeteer. Another astronaut is a great guitar player. So remember that we as humans, we're not one thing, we're lots of things. So as we close out today, I hope you've gotten a bit inspired about, wow, I never knew there was so many ways that I could be part of the space industry. And in the next 20 to 30 years, what will be on your business card will be something that no one has ever printed on a business card before. Space entrepreneur, lunar TV producer, Martian recycling. So let your mind revolve around this thought. The universe is always expanding. Let your mind do the same. And that's the view from Janet's Planet.